Welcome to the Odd Life Podcast. That's AWED, which stands for Awake, Well, and Empowered. We're here to have conversations to inspire women of all ages to live odd AF. I'm your host, Hallie, and thank you so much for being here. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Hallie. Thank you for being here. I'm going to introduce you to somebody here in a second that probably needs no introduction. She is a delight. And I'm sure she's probably in your Instagram feed on a daily basis, like she is mine. I'm talking about no other than the MaryJo Anderson. Yes, I know. I'm just as shocked as you are that she's on the podcast. I just had the most amazing conversation. This is going to be a two-parter because we had such a great conversation about life. MaryJo, she came into my life because I followed Landon Hutchinson, living with Landon, and Landon went to stay at her Isle of Palms rental, and I fell in love with her instantly. She is such a light for so many people. She gets on her Instagram. She'll share her sunrises, her beautiful flowers, her beloved garden, her amazing family, the people in her life that she loves, and shares her daily life with us. And I'm so grateful that she felt comfortable to talk about these things with me on the podcast, allowing us to get a little bit more of an insider glimpse to who she is and what's been going on with her, maybe behind the scenes a little bit that we don't always see on Instagram. So I hope you enjoyed the conversation with my friend, MaryJo Anderson. Enjoy. Just thank you for being a part of this. You've been on my radar for quite a while. I'm so grateful that you said yes to be here because I cannot wait to share more of your story. I know so many people follow you already, but I want to get into more about who you are at your core and what makes you so amazing. You're such a bright spot for so many people on the internet. And I think there's so much more to where, this all comes from. And that's what I want to dig in with you today. But I just want to say thank you for saying yes to being on this little podcast of ours.
Thank you for asking and having me. This is such a joy to be able to have a conversation with you and be on your podcast. I know we've connected many, many years ago, though. We got to take it back because we've been connecting and chatting back and forth for quite some time. And so I've been looking forward to this moment truly and sincerely to have a deeper conversation.
Obviously, this is centered around being awake, well, and empowered. And I think this is the right time. After all these years of following your story and watching you, I think you're finally at this point where you're on the other side of a few things where you can reflect on some of this stuff because of what you've gone through and what you're willing to share here today. I want to build the framework and talk a little bit about your childhood and that version of you as a kid. What was life like for you growing up? Because you didn't grow up very far from where you're at now, right? You were still a Massachusetts kid.
I grew up just a few towns over from where we live now in a town called Haverhill, Massachusetts. It's just 30 minutes north of Boston. I grew up the youngest of three girls, and we were all right in a row. 3 under 3, my mother always used to say. I grew up in a town that was very diverse with 2 parents in my home. I always felt super loved and protected by my 2 older sisters, one of which is only 1 year older than me. So we're very, very close. Then after 30 years of marriage, my parents divorced. And my parents both happily remarried other people. And we inherited a stepbrother and a stepsister through one of those marriages. So even though I say I have 2 older sisters, I actually have 2 older sisters, a younger sister, and a younger brother. Most of my childhood, I grew up the youngest of 3 girls with a very, very strong mother who came from really nothing. And so she just nurtured the heck out of my sisters and I and gave us everything that she didn't have. And I just attribute almost everything to my mom because for a lot of people, our moms are our heroes. And that is true for me.
We did talk about this a little bit in our pre-chat about your mom and how much she gives back to her community because of the way that she grew up. Can you talk about that a little bit and how that influenced you as a person?
Yeah, it's funny. As far back as I can remember, even 3, 4 years old, 5 years old, I always used to hear my mother say, like, too much is given, much is expected. And we didn't have very much growing up, but too much is given, much is expected was always give back to your community, always get involved in your community. It was something that I heard over and over again through my mother and I saw through her actions. So everything from being the brownie troop and the Girl Scout leader to volunteering at our school, to volunteering at the food pantries in our town. Anytime my mother had a chance to volunteer, she did. And she started her own business too. So she was an entrepreneur, small business owner. To this day, she's been 42 years in business with her jewelry company. Yeah. So she was, she started a business out of our home selling jewelry. And so not only was she a creative, a business owner, She also
Yeah.
was extremely involved in my sisters and I's lives and in our community. And so not only did she
Yeah.
say it, but she showed us through all of her actions. So my sisters and I'm 45, my sister Melissa's 46, my sister Sam's 47. All three of us as grown women who have families are extremely involved in our communities. And I always like to share this too. My mother ran for mayor of our town one year. She did not
No
successfully
way.
win, but it just shows you the extent of how involved she really was. She always had the motto of just do the right thing for the right reason always. Whether you end up on top, that doesn't matter, but just always give back and do the right thing for the right reason. So yeah, it's just something that's just part of my life. It's what I was raised on. So it's what's normal, and it's what I'm raising my children on. We have a very abundant life. And then I just always go back to like what my mother shared, like too much is given, much is expected. Like it's just what you do. You do the right thing for the right reason always. You give back when you can. And I think that's hard in the world that we live in. I really do. I'm raising my children to be able to do these things, but they lived a very privileged life, an abundant life. So yeah, in our immediate community, we're really involved with this food pantry that's right down the street from our home. And it was such a COVID blessing. I don't know if that's what you would call or refer to it as, but during COVID, and
I
I know
know.
we'll probably
Yeah.
chat
Yeah.
about this, but I was really, really sick a couple of years prior to COVID and then
Hmm.
leading up to COVID and then a couple of years after. And on the days that I could get out of bed and go for a walk, that's what I would do. I would get out of bed and I would put my 2 feet on the ground and I'd walk up the street, and I've driven by this church hundreds and hundreds of times that's in our town. And I walked by this church. It was in 2020. And it said, there was a sign out front that said, if you need food, come back and let us know. And they had this little closet inside the church that was filled with food. It was like a mini food pantry. And so I went in and I just said, hey, do you guys need some help? Because there was tons of people that were there at that moment. And the founder, this older woman, Jean, and I just started chatting. We realized that we were neighbors. We live on the same road. And she just broke down in tears and she says, I don't know what I'm going to do. This food pantry has always serviced between 30 to 50 people. And now I have 300 people that are needing food. And
Oh,
I'm
wow.
only one person and I only have one closet. I only have a certain amount of food. I don't know what to do. And I just said, I don't know how I'm going to help you, but let me help. And so just jumped right
Yeah.
in. And within 2 years, we built a building. It's a full on food pantry now that services over 600 families in our community. And it's all volunteer led, and it's just flourished. I hate to say flourished because we are serving food insecure
Yeah.
people in our community. So it's this thing that we haven't quite figured out on how
Sure.
to address that. But it is something that I ran towards the fire in my illest of days because I was very unwell. And it is something that sincerely has come full circle for me, that it was actually a lifeline for me too. And so I think that's the beauty
Hmm.
about giving back. You do it because you might feel really called to do it. It's something right in front of you, so you run towards it. And in the end, it ends up saving your life too. And that's exactly what it
Yeah.
did for me. And so, yeah, that seed
Mhm.
was planted in my life when I was a child, and it's something that has served my community and has served my family and me personally really well, is to just be involved,
Yeah.
give back when you can. It will feed your community and will feed your soul. And so I feel like it's all kind of part of the master plan. I share about our philanthropy online a little bit. It's a little bit uneasy to share about it sometimes because I never want to center myself. I never want to like say, oh, look
Yeah.
what we're
I know.
doing, look what
Yeah.
we have. But I do know that my life in different ways can inspire people. And I hope that's the main focus of when I do share that we do philanthropic endeavors. I hope that that's just the seed that can be planted on
Yeah.
someone else's heart, on their family, in their own communities. That's just the main goal. So yeah, I share a little bit of it through my social media that we're involved in our community. That's one way. We support the Boys
Good.
and Girls Club of America. That's another huge way. That was my first job when I was growing up, was at the Girls Club.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so it's just part of who I am and what I do. And I'm really thankful that you just asked about it because it's something
Well,
I
yeah.
do actually
Well,
really love to share about.
yeah. Well, that's one of the things about you that makes you so endearing. And I think this is what most of us, when we see, when you're sharing that, I don't see a look at me at all. What we see is, hey, we're doing this as a family. This is something that our community needs. And I do see it as inspiration to get out there and be involved in our community, because people are in need and nobody's above anybody else.
Mm.
We have what we need and more. And so we have plenty to give. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that is so commendable because you could be completely opposite. You can be in your little bubble and do your thing and travel and have all these experiences, but to give back to your community, I think is so huge. And I think that's important to instill that in your kids and to carry that tradition on that your mom gave you. And I think that's one of the major things that we all love about you is that you are so giving and so loving. And that's a big part of what we see when you show up on social media is how big your heart is. And a lot of things that you do is giveaways, and here are these people that you should know. That is, sometimes I think, a rare quality in the world, especially on social media. If you want to grow and you want to build your brand, it's sort of this look at me, look at me, look at me.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
a lot, and you do the opposite. You're sort of, here's my life that I get to
mhm,
have, and I show you my flowers and I show you my sunrises, but also this is how I'm trying to help other people and to
mhm,
help lift women and help lift families. And
mhm,
I really appreciate that because it gives me a lot of inspiration to do
mm.
better in that aspect of my own life. So I've never seen it as a look at me moment
Mhm.
at all, at
Thank
all,
you.
at
I
all, at all.
appreciate
How
that.
did you, show up as a mom and you're showing up at
Mm,
the pantry? Like, what got you through that? Because
mm,
that's some really heavy stuff to
mhm,
have that
mhm.
moment and thinking, I don't know if I can keep doing this, to then also try and deal with daily life.
You had mentioned earlier, like living in a reflective state. And so I have reflected so much on that time because I was in despair. I was having awful thoughts. I was very sick. When I share about my
Mm,
symptoms, there was hundreds of symptoms. My body
that's
was
insane.
very, very, very sick. And so when I think about that time, like what got me through it, my prayer every single night, and I've shared this a couple times, and I actually can't share it without getting choked up, but like my prayer
Mhm.
every single night was, God, please just take me. Like, please just take me.
Oh,
I know. Or just bring me to people that can help me. I mean, literally, I'd lay down at night and I'd
yeah,
be shivering and convulsing and having these awful symptoms and things that were transpiring the entire day. And I would just have that
sure.
prayer. And so what got me through it, my sister, who has been my rock, who has taken care of my family. I've
Mhm.
shared so many times over so many years, but my dear friend John Luca Capaldi, who's a chef, he came in and cooked for my family for 2 years, where I was really unwell. And so there's a couple angels and people in my life over the 2 years that I was very, very ill that came in and they ran towards my fire and they helped me through it. God being number one, because he did bring me to people that helped me. He brought me to a doctor and a
Yep,
nurse practitioner that held my hand, diagnosed me very quickly, got me on treatment very quickly. And then the people in my community that did know what I was going through, because I did share it on the surface with a few people that were in my health and wellness community I was in, they led me to people that also helped me. People in my community just came alongside me and truly, truly helped me through my Lyme journey because Lyme is
yep,
not this straightforward disease. And being with a functional medicine doctor truly was the life-saving channel for me. Mark and Mary both walked alongside me through the last 4 years. And really, I've just been on a path of healing. At this point, I got on a
yeah,
medication that really was life saving for me. I've been given the opportunity to speak out loud about it on different podcasts now. And I know that that's a huge part of the
yep,
healing process for me and what I went through. But I've made it out what I think on the other side of it. I can speak about it fluidly now. I'm excited to
yeah,
talk about it. I'm excited to share more about it. I think it goes back to like a social media conversation too, which I've had this conversation quite a bit. What you see online is really only maybe
mhm,
1, 2, 3 levels deep, if that. I think there's a lot of people that are sharing a lot more about their lives in a very authentic way. I think different people that are sharing all different things online that are extremely valuable and eye opening to a lot of people. I think functional medicine and that conversation is so huge. And I'm such an advocate for it now because it's been a channel that has truly saved my life. And just having the opportunity to talk about it here and now is so therapeutic for me. And I love talking about it and having these opportunities because I really, really hope that it can plant a seed and help someone
yeah,
else. Because 8 years ago, when I was really, really sick, there was not a lot of information and not a lot of people talking about Lyme disease or autoimmune diseases for that matter, or food as medicine and all these things that I've kind of been exposed to and that I know
sure,
truly firsthand that have saved my life. These conversations are happening online right now. And when I see it happening,
mhm,
I'm so excited when I get the opportunity to speak about it because I really, truly hope that it gets to somebody that was in this. Hopefully they are not in the state that I was in, but maybe it could
yeah,
really, really be a lifeline for someone else. If anything, I've learned the biggest thing about myself is resilience. I've always been
mhm,
resilient. I've always been strong. When I'm reflective about what I went through, that's the one word I tie myself to. I'm resilient. I think women are so resilient. I think we don't give ourselves enough credit for it. We're raising families or leading companies or whatever it is. We are the salt of the earth, stronger than we'll ever know. It's something that I've really attached myself to in the last couple of years that I'm feeling well. I'm feeling better. I'm healing myself,
yeah,
my mind, body, my soul. I want to keep healing. I want to help other people heal. I want to keep having conversations like this. I think we get to the point when you're going through such a crisis, whether it's personally, professionally, health crisis of any sort. I think when
yeah,
you're at rock bottom, you're broken wide open. And that's where I
yeah,
was. But this health
yeah,
crisis has taught me more than anything that I'm resilient. I have a light. I have a voice. Like I'm so thankful for all of it. I really am. Maybe not everybody would agree with me upon this, but I think suffering, true
Yeah,
suffering, brings you to enlightenment,
totally.
brings you to knowledge, it brings you to healing, mind, body,
Yep.
soul. And oddly, I'm really thankful for this crisis that I had in my life. And I hope that
Yep.
my story can help someone else.
I think so too. And I think that's so important to say because a lot of times we'll look at it as like, why me? Why do I have to go through this? We all have a thing, whatever that
Mhm.
thing's going to be that we have to deal with in life. But by you going through this and the suffering you've gone through, and now you're hopefully on the end of it all, not totally the end because it's still Lyme disease, doesn't really ever go away, but you're on
Mhm.
the happy slope of all of it.
Mhm.
But when we go through this, when we share and talk about it, it's going to help the next person, especially if they're in the beginning of this journey, because then they may not have to suffer as long as you did because they're hearing the symptoms early and then they can jump on it quicker. That's how I
Mhm.
sort of look at anything I'm ever going through that's hard.
Mm.
And if I share it, it may just be the thing that someone goes, "Oh my gosh, I didn't think about that." And that's happened to me many, many times. Something's going on and I see someone talk about it and it's like light bulb goes on. I'm like, I
Mhm.
never thought of that. And that may be also what happened with you with Lyme disease because you were not being diagnosed correctly.
Mhm.
And it was somebody talking to somebody and then you've talking to a friend. What made you go
Mhm.
to a functional medicine doctor?
Mhm.
Because you were going to all the traditional things. What made you shift and pivot to go, I got to figure something else out? Was it a conversation? Was it
Mhm.
somebody else telling you about it? Like what
Mhm.
gave you that new direction?
Yes, there's actually 2 moms in my town that I was really friendly with from when the kids were really little, and they both had mentioned functional medicine doctor, although I had never been enlightened, I didn't know what that was. I thought it was something that was a little
Yep.
woo-woo,
Yeah.
and I didn't understand that it is Western medicine. They do prescribe pharmaceuticals, but it is also Eastern medicine and whole health medicine, which I
Yeah.
didn't have any knowledge about that. And so I was
Yep.
like, "Oh, have you seen a functional medicine doctor?" It was like, "No, I'm going to my primary care, I'm doing all the
Yeah.
things." I had been to my doctor so many times. And there was a
Yeah.
turning point where I was prescribed these antidepressants and these painkillers. I had never really
Mm-hmm.
taken anything like that in my life. I'd always been a really positive person. And so I knew that it was time I needed a different path. And so that seed that was planted
Sure.
on me through these 2 local moms, I just explored that conversation. And the conversation was appointment within a week at a functional medicine doctor and a proper diagnosis within a week from that. So it was really life
That's
changing. It happened
crazy.
very quickly. And then over the course of the next 2 years, it was on and off some different medications that finally
Mm-hmm.
moved the needle for me. And now the last 2 years, I've
Yeah.
really just been on the upside of it and enlightening myself to help support my body. Because Lyme
Dang.
disease, from what I'm learning, they're really hard to cure. And it is not the straightforward path. It's something that you have to really
Yeah.
always be treating and fighting in new modalities in order to just feel well, right? Like keep symptoms at
Yeah.
bay and keep
Yeah.
disease at bay. That's kind of what I'm living now. So I use a lot of food as medicine, moving my body as best I can. So it's been such an experience.
Tell me a little bit about some of the symptoms. What were the main ones that
Mm.
told you something's up and I
Mhm.
am not well? What could somebody
Mhm.
recognize as, oh gosh, I may have Lyme disease?
Mhm. Yeah, so if you read anything about Lyme disease, they'll say watch out for the bullseye if you got bitten by a tick, rash, a fever. All there's all different ways that you can like early catch Lyme, or is
Hmm.
obviously through a tick bite. But most people that have chronic Lyme disease never saw a tick and probably wasn't diagnosed early on. And so all the years
Yep.
that I was not diagnosed, I can say that I never remember being bit by a tick, and that's 99% of most
Yep.
people that have chronic Lyme. And so an early onset symptom was severe neck pain and joint pain. And at 38 years old,
Hmm.
I took and taught a lot of fitness classes. I always thought that maybe this could be it, but it wasn't. This was something very different. I had a really
Yeah.
hard time turning my neck or closing my hands or doing any types of squats or anything. Lyme disease can attack all your joints, and that's what was happening with me.
Mm.
I was 30 years old and a really healthy person with 3 kids. I felt like I was
Yeah.
108 years old. That's kind of how I describe it. I felt really
Yeah.
achy
Yeah.
all the time. I had some visual stuff happening early on and just some neurological stuff that had happened that really threw me into a loop, because when you're driving your kids to school or trying to do just everyday things, any type of
Hmm.
neurological pain or visionary problems really can scare you. They tested me for many things early on, and a lot of the things came back negative because that list isn't a well tested Lyme disease panel that they do. Those 5 symptoms that I just described to you turned into 25 symptoms, turned into 50 symptoms, turned into many things after that.
Gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. To the
So
point
it's
where,
crazy
yeah.
making.
Yeah. Yeah. It was to the point where I didn't want to live. I was suffering so
Mhm.
badly. Yeah, it's really
Gosh,
difficult to say that because neurological pain and autoimmune diseases, once it attacks your nervous system, it can really trip out your thoughts. And when you're in pain and suffering of
yeah,
any sort, I don't know so much about depression, but I know that I was in a deep depression. I was having
yeah,
ill thoughts, and my brain was diseased with Lyme, and I was suffering. Yeah, I was really in it. And now I have deep empathy. I have really, really deep empathy and
yeah,
understanding for depression and for people
yep,
that go through difficult things. I've always been a very empathetic
mhm,
person, but I have deep empathy to my core now for people that go through health
yeah,
crisis, grief of any sort, really. I really tie it all
yeah.
together. I don't think this is just excluded just to people that go through health stuff.
Well, question for you about that, because when you're in that kind of state, I'd have to think about your relationship, especially with Bryce.
Mhm,
How did you guys get through that? Because you didn't know you had Lyme initially. It was 4 years of not knowing this is
mhm,
Lyme. I'm going crazy. This is what's happening. How
mhm,
did you all get through that? Because that
mm,
to me would seem, not to insert myself, but I know that going through menopause and your hormones change and fluctuate, you feel like you're going crazy, and that affects everything in your
mm,
life. You have depressive thoughts, and your relationships and everything is affected by it. And I can only imagine it's similar, but a much harder,
mhm,
especially for how long you're dealing with it. How did
mhm.
you guys navigate that?
So I appreciate you asking this question. I'm so open to answering it. At the time, I don't think I would have been open to answering it, and I definitely didn't share any of this online. I present Bryce and I
Yeah.
as a very, very happy couple, but we are no different than any other marriage, and we have our deep struggles.
Mhm.
And during this period of time, I think that was our lowest of lows. He was
Yeah.
always used to a very high functioning wife, a high functioning mother,
Yeah.
a very
Yep.
positive person, a very active wife, active person. And through those
Yep.
years, I was the opposite of that. And so when we didn't know what it was, I didn't know what it was.
Yep.
He didn't know what it was. I became a person that I did not know, and I became a person that he did not know. And
Yep.
so our marriage suffered greatly through those years. Yeah, there was a lot of talk about divorce. There was a lot of talk about
Mhm.
I wanted him to leave. There was a lot of doctor's appointments that he did not come to.
Sure.
It's very emotional to talk about it because I'm still healing from my resentment towards
Yeah.
him, my ability to accept that he did not understand what I was going through, therefore he didn't know
Yeah.
how to support me
Yeah.
best. This is not to shit on the men, but this stuff is really, really hard. Menopause is really hard. All these things that
Yep.
women go through is really hard. And this was a
Yeah.
health crisis that
Yep.
him
Yep.
nor I had ever experienced. And so our marriage suffered greatly through those years. Greatly. I can speak for him because again, we talk about it a lot. I always used to go back when we were fighting during those times. I just kept saying, this isn't through sickness and health. This is not what it looks
Yeah.
like. This is not through sickness and
Yeah,
health.
that's right.
This feels like you want
Yeah.
to be with me just through health. And
Yeah.
that's what it
Yeah.
was. That's what the fight was. It was that he was
Yeah.
not in the trenches with me. He didn't know how to be.
Yep.
We weren't equipped. We didn't know what I was sick with. And I was going to most of my doctor's appointments alone. And this is in the midst of him building a very successful
Sure. Sure.
business and me trying to hold down the fort in some essence.
Yep.
But to talk about this, I
Yep.
can be very candid with you. Yeah, we suffered greatly through it, and we're building our way back. We're building our way
Yeah.
back. And I have to say, we're better than we've ever been, which is really exciting to
Yes.
say and share. But we have been through the trenches of hell. Our marriage has. And it's
Yep.
not the first time we've been through the trenches of hell either. This was just probably
Mhm.
the deepest
Mhm.
trenches that we've been through. But we've been through some really hard
Yeah.
things before. One of the things that I say about Bryce and I is we're resilient and we're fighters. We fight for each
Mhm.
other and we don't give up on
Yeah.
each other. Although
Yeah.
I've wanted to. I've wanted to. And what's really beautiful is that
Yep.
we probably have a really long road ahead of us still. We talk about that a lot of hard things that we'll go through. Like there's no way
Yep.
that this is the only curveball in life that we're going to be thrown. We both have aging
Yep.
parents and things that we're looking straight in the face right now. And it's very complex, right? And marriage is definitely a journey. So I'm not
It is.
opposed to talking about that with you. And I appreciate that you even asked me. I really do. And
Yeah.
I like
Well,
sharing about it. It humanizes everybody a little bit more. Social media kind of
yeah.
takes that away from the
Yeah.
picture sometimes, right? It takes away from the true picture of what we all are, which is human, having a human
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah, I'm not gonna hop on social media just so I can watch your marriage decline, right? That you wanna get on there to be inspired and be happy and, find the joy and things like that. But at the same time, I think it's great to know that you're not alone in what you're going through,
Mm,
especially for somebody that sees an individual that looks like life is going great.
mhm,
And in the meantime, you are suffering physically, you're suffering
Mhm.
mentally, your relationships are suffering. That's a lot to go through. And to
Mhm.
come out the other side where you're at now is really astonishing, honestly. Everything's intact, your
For
body's still
now.
intact, your marriage is
For
still
now.
intact. You're like, yeah, like we're hanging on. But I think it's important that we do share these things because I
Mhm.
think it, like you said, it humanizes us, but also it just lets people know if I can do it, you can do it too. Like
Mhm.
it's not impossible. And hopefully we can find that resilience in ourselves. But when you are suffering with something and you're in a relationship with somebody, it really makes you dig into both of you. Like, where's my weaknesses at? My weakness may be
Mhm.
this because I didn't realize until you're forced to deal with something, you
Mhm.
may not know that's a thing about yourself. You may not know that's a trigger for you. And when we finally address those things, and maybe it took your health issue to get to some of those issues, but you may have gotten to those issues eventually with something else.
Mhm.
But I think, like you said, it's those hard things you go through, you get to rebuild and you get to move forward in a different way. And the marriage looks different now. And I think we're meant to go
Mhm.
through these things,
Mhm.
whatever that thing is, to get us to the hard
Mhm.
conversations.
Mhm.
And I applaud you for having those hard conversations because I know that my parents, especially like that generation, I don't
Mhm.
think they had those hard conversations. It
Mm.
was a lot of resentment and bitterness and just pretend it's not happening.
Mhm.
And actually having a hard conversation and dealing with it is such a great gift you're giving your kids too, because they're seeing you guys work through your stuff. How did this all affect your kids? Do they see this and talk about it with you a lot still and understand what you really went through?
During the period of time where I was really sick, they didn't understand it. Bryce and I didn't really understand it. And there was disarray through the whole family at that point. And they were young at the time. I always refer back to 8 years ago. Reese she was 6 years old. So we protected the kids to
Yeah.
the point where I don't think they really actually knew how sick mom was. When we talk about it now and we
Yep.
talk about those years, they know. And they knew about the people that came alongside us, my sister being one of the most important people that walked alongside me, that did come to my doctor's appointments with
Hmm.
me, and my doctors obviously, and a few close friends. This is such a conversation that I don't know if you have, but I feel like I have this a lot. But just as I've gotten older, going through all the things, I've learned so much going through this experience. My relationships, yes, but my friendships have changed a lot too.
Yeah.
As a grown woman, there's just not a lot of time and space and energy
Yep.
when you're going through something really difficult. And it's not anything against
Yep.
anybody, but friendships change, right? And I've had
Yeah.
a lot of experience with that over the last, you know, 8, 6, 5, 3 years. I've had a lot of
Hmm.
changed relationships, women friendships, because
Hmm.
there's just not a lot of space for things that don't feel aligned. I know that's something that you and I have talked about, but like alignment's everything. When you go through something really difficult, the things that feel
Yep.
aligned and right as you grow and
That's right.
age and go through these things as a
Yep.
woman, I don't know, it's just like you just want more of things that feel really aligned, and you're being way more honest about that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah,
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
kids have learned a lot through this. Although I think they were protected in the beginning, as they're getting older, when they reflect on it, yeah, mom was really sick. And it's something that
Sure.
we talk about because those years were difficult. They saw Bryce and I fighting a lot. I'm not really tight-lipped with anything. I'm a pretty open book. So when we're talking within the family, we're definitely a generation that airs it all, or as much as we can.
Yeah. I think when then you look at then the last few years, so you've gotten the diagnosis and you said you've done some different medications. What was the biggest shift for you as far as feeling well?
So 3 years ago, there was a medicine that someone had mentioned to me, and it was an off-market medicine that they use to treat
Hmm.
people that have malaria, which is obviously everybody knows malaria. It's a
Yep.
real serious disease, and they haven't made it available to people with Lyme disease, but I have a little bit of access. And so that's something I like to always acknowledge, like access and
Yep.
privilege. I was able to get my hands on this medicine that really turned the corner for
Yep.
me. And the thing
Mm.
about Lyme and a lot of these autoimmune diseases, what works for me might not necessarily work for someone else. So I don't like to just say what I took out loud, because, I don't want anybody to go down this road that might not be good for them. They have to consult with their doctor and do their own research. But this medicine that I got my hands on 3 years ago was a life-changing medicine that moved the needle for my health. I went from 50
Nice.
symptoms at the time to literally no symptoms. So that was
Oh
pretty
my
life
gosh.
changing. And at the
That's
same
huge.
time, huge. And at the same time, while taking that medicine, I was introduced to a woman, Stacey Stowers was her name, and her
Hmm.
Food is Medicine, Eat Raw book, which is her cookbook that introduces how to utilize food as medicine eating a raw diet, being
Yep.
raw vegetables, not raw meats, but raw vegetables, and how that can
Yeah.
really benefit people that are fighting disease. And so I implemented that into my life. And so between this medicine and a raw diet, I went from wanting to die truly to living fully again. Yeah, those two things were
Crazy.
life changing for me. That was 3 years ago. In the last 2 years, after being
Yep.
on those medicines, I've just
Yep.
been utilizing that raw diet and supplements and some other things just to manage the disease, keep it at
Keep
bay,
it
feel
going.
well, move my body when I can, and talk about it more and explore all the things about
Yeah.
health, wellness, and longevity.
I was gonna say, like, this had to have changed a lot, for you about how you approach everything because once you realize, "Oh my gosh, this food" I mean, obviously the medication too, but eating a raw diet made a huge impact. Like, has that changed your whole view of,
Mm.
like, health and wellness now in general? Like, 'cause what life was like before to what it's like now, I'm sure looks completely different.
Yeah, absolutely. Being in the fitness and health and wellness world for many, many years, played college basketball. I know we
Yeah.
talked about this. Right out of college, I worked at a fitness center. I've taught
Mhm.
fitness classes for many, many years. And so I thought I knew what wellness was. It wasn't until I got sick that, and learning about food and nutrition was then my mind
Yep.
completely expanded in that conversation. I
Yep.
think in anything in life, when you go through suffering, you are enlightened and you're exposed, and if you stay really open, there's some fascinating things in our world and in our food system. Obviously, I'm completely enlightened to it now.
Yeah,
Living
I
with
know.
disease and sugar and all the things about inflammation is just a huge conversation that I did not know before and that I know now and that I'm open to having. I'm open to learning more. But yeah, that's a
Yeah.
key factor in the way that I feel well is eating well. It's my
Yeah.
silver bullet in how I navigate every
Yeah.
day. And that's not to say that I'm perfect because I absolutely love ice
I know.
cream. I love my cinnamon rolls. There's so many things that I do really love to indulge
Yes,
in.
yes.
I just know that I need to keep it at a real minimum if I want to feel well, because that will feed my
Yeah.
disease. Yeah.
And I think that's what we have to get to that point where when you start to when you finally eat the healthy food and you had the raw diet and your body responded, then it's like the mind goes, "Oh," it makes the connection. And then once you make that connection, it's a lot easier to say no to that thing because you know how you're going to feel afterwards. You know that your
Exactly.
body's going to go, rejecting, not happening. I feel much better when I eat these things. And I think we
Hmm.
have to get to that point when we start to recognize because I didn't for years. I was a sugarholic as a kid, drank all the sodas and all the things. And until I finally took it out and I started eating healthy, I was like, oh, this is what
Hmm.
feeling good feels like. I had no
Hmm.
idea.
Mm.
And then once you have that connection, it's a lot easier to keep that connection going. And then you start to look at other things in your life too. What else could I be doing to make myself feel better? Has it impacted all those things for you too? Or is that something you're still exploring?
Absolutely. I know we talked a little bit about this, but the conversation around alcohol I just had recently, and that's something that have cut out of my life as well. That alone is such a huge conversation, and I've been enlightened to. Recently, I
Yep.
was on a podcast that was specifically about sobriety and being alcohol free, and it was
Wow.
one of the most enlightening conversations I've ever had. I loved it. I loved hearing about other women's experience with
Yeah.
it. I loved sharing mine. I touch a little bit about my sister who had a real battle with alcohol and drugs, and so it's such a thing in our society that I think really can disadvantage us in our health. And I love
Yeah.
hearing
Yeah.
people talk about that more and hearing them talk about it
Yeah.
on a very personal level. So, yeah, I've cut alcohol out of my life. I try to make best choices with home products and all the things. But yeah, like I'm totally enlightened to all of
Yeah.
it now. And I'm
Yeah.
not going to just confine to what's so societally normal. I'm not going to do that anymore. I don't feel like I've ever been like that anyways. So it feels like a breath of fresh air and feels like freedom.
Yes, it
So,
does. It does. Well, the alcohol, it's so funny is that most women that I really have great connections with are women that show up fully and very present in their daily lives. They tend to have given up alcohol. And it's funny that I won't find that out about them initially, but then it's something that I find out later. I'm like, "Ah,
mm.
knew it, knew it." I gave it up in 2018. It's one of the things that's been the biggest needle mover for me. I gave up a lot of crappy food for a while. I realized what I was eating made a big impact. The alcohol was a huge detriment to my life. And I find a lot of women say the same thing. When they gave it up, they're like, oh my gosh, the light bulb went on, creativity went through the roof, all these different
Mm.
things. And I realized how much I was missing out on in my life because I had alcohol. Like for you, was it because of your Lyme disease or
Mm.
what made you
I,
mix it?
I go back to, just knowing. I think us as women, we know from early on in our relationships, like we know this guy isn't for us, but we might stay with him for a little
Yeah.
bit longer.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
there's all
Yeah.
these different scenarios where I'm like, oh my God, women know. They know here. If they tap into it, They know. And I've always really felt like alcohol had never served me. I never felt great drinking it. So for many years, as far back as I can go, it's like, oh God, yeah, I never felt great. I never loved it. I felt like I was more of a better time and more of myself when I was sober. And so when I talk about sobriety or being alcohol free, really, like you just
Yeah.
said, there's such clarity in it. And it's like I can see everything clear. I wake up refreshed. I just
Mhm.
feel so much better. So I had drank on and off through high school and college. And then when I got
Sure.
pregnant with Jackson, which was 20 years ago, I remember I gave it up for quite some time because I had little kids. I didn't like
Yep.
waking up and not feeling well. And I just wanted to give them the best version of their mom. And so I gave it up. And then I socially drank throughout the
Sure.
years. And then when I got sick 8 years ago, it was like it was like a no-brainer. It was like, you can't do or have anything that makes you feel even worse. I had already felt so bad. So it was
Yeah.
really, really easy at that point to give it up. And I never went back. And it's been,
Yeah.
oh God, this is just so freeing not to have it in my life. And there's
Yeah.
clarity in everything. And that's just that's the only way I can explain it. Just personally, I just feel
Yeah.
like clearer.
And don't you feel like you know yourself really well without it? I feel like I can hear myself better, my own voice, my own intuition. Oh, I was always numbing that voice and
Mm.
silencing her.
Mhm.
And when I stopped drinking, I finally heard myself again for the first time, really. Because I drank since I was in high school. I mean, I was,
Same. Same.
did the social thing for sure. And it did change friendships.
Mm.
People pulled back. I had people that like, well, we didn't think you'd want to come because you weren't drinking. But I really think sometimes people don't want to be around other people that don't drink because it
Mm.
holds a mirror up a little bit
Mm.
to their own relationship with alcohol. And I think I've just realized that's not my cross to bear. That's something that they've got
Right.
to deal with. And it just, if you can't hang with me because I don't drink,
Right.
then I guess I'm not your person. And
Right.
until you deal with your own relationship with it,
Mm.
if me not drinking threatens somehow, some way, the way
Mhm.
that you show up, I can't do much about that.
Mhm. I totally agree.
Has that impacted any friendships for you at
Oh
all?
God, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a party girl. So it's like I love to have a good time. I love to throw the parties.
Yeah.
Now I throw the parties and I'm the only one that's not drinking. But yeah, it just goes back to like what you just said. It really is like it's just not a part of my life. But for quite some time, yeah.
Mhm.
If you're not drinking, friendships change.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it almost feels a little awkward at times. I don't know if you've felt this way, but like, what's wrong with me that I'm not drinking? There's this engagement that I feel like I've had so many times.
Yeah.
Like, you want to drink? Oh, no, 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 I'm fine. Like, I don't need to
Yep.
drink. And then it's, wait, typically it's usually like, are you pregnant? Right?
Pregnant.
Like that would be the first question.
Yes.
And the second one would be like, whoa, just have one. What's going on? And there's
Yep.
almost a stigma about people that don't drink. And what I'm
Mhm.
really, really excited and appreciative of is that there's so many more conversations about being sober or alcohol free.
Yeah.
Like even just learning that about you and hearing a little
Yeah.
bit more, it's just a breath of fresh air for me to hear that. I love it. I think it's such a component of women's health that is finally being spoken about. And I enjoy speaking about it. I enjoy the fact that it might inspire other women.
Yeah. If I could go back and give myself a gift, it would be to understand how it was hurting me so much in who I was becoming.
Mm.
I didn't know who I was. I don't know what you were like in college, but in
Mm.
college, I was sort of just like, okay, I'm going to go with the flow. I'm going to go here, this group and this group and this group. I did the whole sorority thing and I just went along with everything. And I think if I would have been a non-drinker, I
Mm.
would have felt a lot more confidence in who I was as a person rather than always being the chameleon in the group. And I think it wouldn't have taken me so long at the age of 40, 41, whatever it was. I kind of started having my aha moments, but I would have gotten to know myself a lot better sooner and maybe have made different decisions and maybe,
Mm.
had said no to this friend group and joined this one and made some healthier choices in my life and stood up for myself. Those kinds of things. It took me a long time to get there. But when I started to pull back from the alcohol is when it was like, oh,
Mm.
that's where she went. I found myself again. I just feel like the alcohol piece was the final frontier for me,
Mhm.
really. And I'd done everything else health wise, but that's the hardest one to do because everyone does it. And it's such a
Mhm.
normal thing.
Yeah.
And you feel like such a pariah because you're not doing it. And I'm loving finding women now that
Mm.
are taking a step back. I just think women that don't drink alcohol just it's them fully as themselves in the social
Mm.
setting. There's no other thing
Mm.
between us. And I've found it's been so refreshing. So I'm kind of trying to create this little social group of people that have a place where they can come and do fun things and not
Mm.
have to be around alcohol.
I totally get it. I totally get it. I think what you're touching upon too is just like the alignment of all of it.
Yeah.
And I know that I wish that I took it out far long ago too.
Yep.
But the alignment of life and how it's all coming to fruition right now, it just feels so good that I'm leaning into the relationships that make so much more sense.
Yeah,
I'm
totally.
leaning into how much time we have. I mean, I know you have 3 older children too. It's like, there's not enough
Yep.
time.
I know.
There's not enough time. There's not enough time in the day, in the week, in the month, in the years ahead. And it's so valuable. You want to spend it with the people that just really feel aligned. And
Yeah.
that's kind of like where I've been at too. And so being alcohol free the last few years, a lot of my friendships and relationships have changed too. But I'll tell you right now, like, I am such a firm believer. I say this to my sister all the time. Every single time a door is closed, and not that it's like a bad door or something bad happened or a relationship ends. I don't know. I just lean in and another door, another person comes up or another connection. And
That's right.
It just feels like it's even more aligned than anything I've ever experienced.
Yeah. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you found this episode either helpful, inspiring, entertaining, or just made you feel less alone. Or maybe all of those things. If so, I'd love it if you'd share this episode with a friend, as well as on your social media. And if I dare ask for more, to rate and review the podcast on your favorite platform, especially Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You see, the more reviews we have, the more people we can reach, and the bigger the Odd Life community can become. You guys are the best. I can't wait to chat again next week, so we'll see you then.